アンソニーとしても知られているザ・スーパービッダン。得意はポケモン、モダン格闘ゲーム、そしてパッツルゲーム。彼はプラットフォーマのイエス。マイケルとしても知られているザ・ミラクル。得意は JRPG と古典的格闘ゲームと輸送。彼は最強のオタクだ。ラッシュダウンラディオスタートスノー。
Welcome to a new episode of Rushdown Rant. I'm Michael, and we're going to be talking about the Final Fantasy series, especially Final Fantasy Type O, and why I feel it's the best entry in the Final Fantasy franchise. Now, the other games in the series are all great in their own right. They've all achieved, things that particular game put into mix, and they've all implemented new things to the series that are great. But I feel like Type O was able to incorporate a good majority of a lot of things from each individual title and put it into one game and make something great out of it. Now, Type O, especially being that it is kind of a spin-off title for the Final Fantasy 13 novella, Rubrum, Chronicle, whatever you want to call it, that whole little trinity of games, which was supposed to be Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy Type O, and Final Fantasy Versus 13. And of course, we know what happened with Versus 13. That's another video in itself. But more specifically with Type O, I think that one thing specifically that I did that another other game was able to do was bring a mature tone to the series that no other game was able to do. Like, you play all the other Final Fantasy games, you can tell this game isn't geared towards really an adult audience. It may have adult tones to it. I think Final Fantasy 7 was probably the one that had the most adult tones to it because of the graphic nature of the language and the themes and things like that. But I feel like Type O was able to do it a step further by adding more mature scenes in the game that weren't just there for just for the sake of being graphic, but just give you more of an emotional connection to these people, especially when they're going through the battles and the war and how war really does ravage a nation. And I feel like every other game in the series didn't really touch on how terrible that is. Like, they didn't show the aftermath of things. Like, I think Type O, as far as just story specifically, was able to amplify this effect that war has on people and just how gruesome it could be. Like, a lot of the scenes in the game were really graphic in nature, and that's how battle and war is. War isn't this fun-filled fairy tale like an anime. It's just okay, we won. No, there's casualties. There are people's lives at stake, and I don't think any other Final Fantasy game really gave you an instance of that. I can say maybe a few of them may have danced on the issue, or maybe flirted with the idea of casualties and loss and things like that. Maybe Final Fantasy 10 would probably be a good example, and maybe Final Fantasy 7 too, but not to the extent that Type O. When Type O went a step further, okay, this happened and this many people died and this is what the effect it had and this was a big deal. And I like the fact that it did that, because that's how war is supposed to be depicted. It's not this isn't this fantastical thing that just happens. It's not like this happy time or we're about to go fight. No, your life is at stake. Your home country is at stake. Your livelihood is at stake. And I think that Type O showcased this in a way that made it more realistic than any other game has done, without making the game not seem like a fantasy world that it was in. Another thing that I really enjoyed and I felt was really great was how they incorporated the Eidolons in the game. And this was, I think, was a nod to Final Fantasy 9, which showed you just how devastating these Eidolons could be and what their destructive power would actually do, especially in Final Fantasy 9 when you saw the that one scene when Odin comes and he destroys that whole rat place where all the rat people live, and he destroyed it. And that was pretty devastating at that time. I think that Type O went a step further with a lot of the cutscenes with the Eidolons and just show how destructive they were and how awesome they were. They really showcased these Eidolons are not anything to play. These things can destroy worlds. I mean, it's not just something used in battle. These are things we can use as war like I guess war cannons or war machines, whatever you want to call them. Like they're useful in such a grander scheme than just, you know, one-on-one conflicts. And it's great to see a game really take that aspect of like magic and make it on a bigger, grander scale, especially when you're dealing with things like war and, you know, conflict and things like that. Another thing I really enjoyed about Type O and how it presented the idea of, you know, this school training kids, which is the thing they did in Final Fantasy VIII, which was done, but it wasn't to the extent that this is like life or death pretty much. And that's the thing that I think the overall scope of Type O was trying to drive home, was this sense of life and death. Like these battles are life and death. Like this could really change the course of history. And it shows you step by step how each event, each battle that we had a significant effect on the course of history of the Orients. And I think that it made the game less about just the main cast. It made the game about everyone involved too. Like you play other Final Fantasy game, it's the main hero and the main people. We stop the villain, we kill everybody, yay, day is saved. Whereas in Type O, it's like, okay, yeah, we're important, but there are other important figures in this war too. They're just as important as the main cast that help drive the story. And I think that whole aspect of having multiple characters and multiple sides and, you know, different factions and different like intrigue and stuff was really cool to see. It wasn't just a battle of good and evil. It was a battle of, you know, this war-torn like world that's going through like this big epic war right now. And I love how they did that in the game. Not to mention the battle system is completely different from all the other games too. And it's great that they took a really big risk by doing that, because it's not like a regular turn-based, because that's what Final Fantasy is known for. So I applaud Square Enix for making this game, because not only is the story wonderful, the writing is really strong, the battle system is really great, everything about the game was really not spot on. The only problem I had may be that there wasn't enough backstory for some of the characters, but I see that this was kind of a game that kind of like threw you into the mix really quick to try to see what's going on. So yeah, that's kind of like how it is. It's like a movie. That's kind of like I think the Type O is supposed to. That's the direction that we're going. This is a movie, and you're going straight in, and this is what's going on, and you don't have time to really explain everything, because this is a battle already in progress. So yeah. So that's my views on Type O. I do think it's the best Final Fantasy to date. You might disagree, or you might agree. Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
I can at last see